揽投资国内专业的互联网理财平台，收益超银行活期数倍，已为众多用户带来丰厚收益。揽投资理财新选择，
源于民族之心，兴于品质之巅，成于健康之路。有爱有缘有三元。
经历了2008年金融危机之后，世界经济依旧处在缓慢恢复的过程之中。马丁又是怎样理解当下的经济形势的？在他看来，这团队峰会又能够在推动世界金融稳定、促进经济增长方面起到什么样的作用呢？
So generally speaking, how do you predict the world economy right now? Has it fully got out of the financial crisis and or still a little bit trapped among that?
I don't think anybody can exaggerate the effect of a financial crisis. Financial crisis has repercussions that go on for years and years. We're still suffering from them. At the same time, we're suffering from the fact that a number of countries have got aging populations. My generation, I hate to say it, is aging the world. And an aging population is not a population that is conducive to great growth. And so therefore, I think that specific actions have to be taken. They're going to be called for in the case of Turkey. I don't think that there's any doubt that major infrastructure spending is required, and it's going to have to be taken by all of the developed world.
So, because you just mentioned about the infrastructure, so how do you think about AIIB and what kind of contribution it can do?
Every country I know has a major infrastructure deficit. That deficit is either in roads, or it's in sewerage, or it's in educational institutions. And I think that the AIIB is an excellent idea, and I think that it's going to do very well. You can only have one IMF. You can only have one monetary anchor. You can have many infrastructure banks, and they're all required because the world needs infrastructure.
Yeah, because right now there's a broad analysis thinking that emerging markets are right now in trouble, so also are facing a lot of problems, which is related with the financial crisis in developed world. So what's your comment on emerging market? What's your comment on that?
Well, the emerging markets are going to depend very heavily on the developed markets for business. But the interesting thing is the developed world depends on the emerging markets for business. We're one world. We're one world, and in fact is that if one part of the world is going to slow down, it's going to have an effect on the other.
During the financial crisis, there are a lot of discussions about the EU regulatory bodies, and so improve the regulatory bodies. And do you think that has done enough after the financial crisis?
I think the United States, in terms of which began the problem with the subprime crisis, I think the United States took the steps that were required. I don't think Europe has. That in fact, in terms of the regulation and in terms of capital ratios in the banks, those countries are thinking of watering it down. I don't think there's any doubt that the Europeans are going to have to step up to the mark much more than what they have. To be honest, I think we've seen problems in terms of China. The shadow banking system in China obviously requires a bit more regulatory push than what has happened. And I think this is the kind of thing that can come out of the G20. I will also say, if I might, that, and I would hope that we will get into this in this discussion, that one of the major responsibilities of the G20 has got to be the beefing up the multilateral institutions. One of those institutions is the Financial Stability Board. The fact of the matter is the Financial Stability Board was created by the G20 to deal with the kinds of financial crises that really blighted the world in the subprime crisis or after 2008. The Financial Stability Board is still a godchild of the G20. The Financial Stability Board should essentially become the fourth pillar, I think, of the global architecture. It should become a treaty between the countries, and it should be given the power in fact, to call countries to account if, in fact, their bank regulation or their financial sector regulation is not sufficient.
But there are also dangers of over-regulation and over-regulated market, and which will damage or discourage financial innovation. So how to balance the two?
Yeah, well, that's what the bankers say. Can there be over-regulation? Of course there can. But I think that you've got to watch out to where the problems lie. Over-regulation is a problem. I think regulatory capture or capture of the regulators by the industry is a greater problem, and I think it's the one you've got to watch.
How do you think about the internet finance? Because right now in China, people talk about the internet finance, which means that the internet can do a lot of financial work.
I think that there are vast new ways in which payment systems are going to work, as an example. I think they're going to be very, very efficient. I think that there's no doubt that our children are going to pay for things much differently than the way that we did. I think that these kinds of online financial things are phenomenal benefits to rural areas in Africa, as an example, where all of a sudden people can get payment. I think there are huge benefits to be gained by this, but no doubt about it, we're going to have to find ways to regulate them that we don't have at the present time. And, the ability of people to develop new ways knows no limits. The problem is that when it happens faster than the regulators can deal, you run into these kinds of issues.
So there's a danger, there's a risk of bring another financial crisis?
No, I don't know. I certainly hope not. This is the reason that the G20 is so important. We are beyond the period now where an innovation can take place in one country, one major country, or one continent, and the rest of the world isn't affected. And the reason that we needed the G20, which is not simply 7 or 8 countries from one, with one kind of system, but it in fact is represented in every continent of the world and every level of economy, is in fact to deal with these kinds of issues. There have to be trigger systems. And that's the responsibility of the G20. And it's the kind of thing that I would like to see come out of the Turkey summit. It's very much the kind of thing that has got to come out of the Chinese summit.